Isaac, come in, please.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, we did it.
There we go.
Where were you hiding? Which
happened,
crevice did you climb into?
That's a good question. We Gen Zers have a lot of different places we can hide out now. Probably on TikTok or something. Who knows?
That's because you know the technology so well. So,
dude.
Explain what's going on. Speaking of crevices, why? Because I think this is confounding for people. You've got Disney, one of the great companies in the history of mankind in the entertainment business. They were a dominant force, the most respected. Walt Disney, the most wholesome and American, pro-American image. That's what the company was built on. And now they've taken a big highboard dive into the pools of ridiculous social issue politics. Why?
Yeah, so this is an interesting situation. So as of yesterday, Disney had its annual board meeting, and one of the issues the company is having to confront and has been attempting to confront over the past couple of years is the fact that they're really bad at making money for their shareholders. So there's been lots of concerns about how woke Disney is going, whatever that means, right? Their manner of handling LGBTQ representation in their films, their expressly political activism, especially as connects to the state of Florida. They've gotten in dust-ups with the DeSantis administration in Florida, and they've gotten the wrong end of that so badly that they lost their tax-exempt status. But basically, they just haven't made money for their shareholders in a really long time. And so now, as was fated to happen, their board underwent a challenge from a shareholder activist, and it was unsuccessful. But the fact that this even happened at all is an indicator of how far Disney has fallen.
Which way did this activist, what was he objecting to, and which direction was he trying to push the company?
Yeah, so this activist is an individual by the name of Nelson Peltz, and what he pointed out is that Disney has focused on political activism. Disney has lost a tremendous amount of money for its shareholders, and they've allowed that to get in the way of actually producing a profitable product. And so that means when a board commits to doing that, and the board of a company does that for an extended period of time, it's time to rethink that board. It's time to vote out that board, which is what we called for.
Is this connected to Bob Iger, who is the CEO who returned a couple of years ago after his replacement didn't work out? You would have thought he was bringing a steady hand back.
Yeah, you would have thought that, right? So after Iger came back, he made a couple of very quick changes that caused stock to go back up for a short time. But even that wasn't enough. So when you look at Disney stock in probably February of 2021, it's trading at near $200. Last year in October, it was trading at $81. Even Bob Iger has known exactly how political Disney is being. He has no one to blame but himself in this. Disney just picked its way. They picked their very political path, and they're now paying the price for it. And so are their shareholders, more importantly.
And do we know where this influence came from? Because you've got two parts to this. One is that they got into politics at all and they decided they had to make a stand. And two is that they made a anti-American, pro-woke stand. I'm assuming that comes from trying to maintain goodwill with their own employees who are a critical part of their product. I mean, it's a very customer-facing company, and is that their burden?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So there's a lot of pressures on big companies to be woke, whether you want to talk about the influence from organizations like GLAAD, but in specifically in the case of Disney, I mean, they have some of the individuals in very high places in their own production center, including one of their executive producers, were openly talking about injecting a gay agenda into Disney's products, right? This is coming from political actors within the Disney machine, right? This is Disney doing the bidding of people who are making their products. So that's part of it. And then part of it is external influences, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, the responsibility for this lies on Disney's board for going along with it and for allowing their actual fiduciary duty to take a back seat.
Do you see parallels to this in other companies, or is Disney unique in the mistakes they've made and the trouble they've gotten themselves into. And as you say, they're not making money. I mean, it is a bottom line industry. They're supposed to make money for their shareholders. You say they aren't. And is that a result of these political stances or a misguided emphasis, energy being wasted on political things rather than production things?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you see parallels, corporate parallels to a bunch of different companies. Most notably, you can go to two examples. You can go to Bud Light and their partnership with Dylan Mulvaney, which they paid for in kind. Their profits dropped significantly. Their stock price dropped. You can see all of that in kind. And then Target, perhaps more notably, over some of their Pride swimwear type apparel.
Oh, that's right. The clothing displays in the store.
Yeah, absolutely. These kinds of political parallels are everywhere, and they're hitting America's biggest companies. And as a result, America's biggest companies are now, I'll say this, there's go woke, go broke is not an absolute rule, but it is a rule because it turns out in the case of Disney, when you go woke, you kind of lose your ability to also focus on making money. And that's the problem. It's a misguided focus at its heart.
If the impetus for companies to go woke is because they are filled with employees who come from a very different mindset politically than older folk would even comprehend, then that's a tough position to be in. They're worried about the fact that they're guiding a ship that really doesn't belong to them.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, but in another sense, I mean, Bob Iger could have avoided this. I mean, there are plenty of people who would love to work at Disney. He 100% had the option to try and right this ship, to try and focus on the products, to try and focus on Disney's responsibility to its shareholders. And if that means that there's some employee turnover, that may be part of the cost of doing business. I mean, it's hard sitting here, it's hard to make the argument that if Iger had attempted after his return to right the Disney ship and do things the right way and focus on products and not politics, it's hard to imagine that Disney would be doing any worse than it is now.
Well, if there was a rebellion, though, if Mickey Mouse refused to walk out and talk to little kids, or if the discussion was
find some other guy for $10 an hour to put on the Mickey Mouse costume.
Well, it seemed, though, the impression I got of Disney is that they had lost control of their workers, and if they would have fought back, they would have been in trouble.
Yeah, that's possible. And I mean, there is always a risk to. I mean, obviously, Disney is an entertainment business. The entertainment business trends heavily left in terms of the kind of people who go and work in it. This is a fair criticism. But if that's the case, why is Disney underperforming other media companies within its own? Why is it losing to Netflix? Netflix is not exactly run by dyed-in-the-wool conservatives. At the end of the day, you have to perform within your own peer group. And if you can't even perform within your own peer group among companies who are producing largely the same kind of products and services that you're producing, that's a sign that there's something much, much deeper happening that's dysfunctional.
All right, hold on one second. Isaac Willour is with us. We'll give you a chance to make one more point when we continue. Stay with us, Isaac, on WTIC.
Never miss a moment. Go listen to the Todd Feinberg podcast on the Odyssey app.
We're talking to Isaac Willour, Willour. And you can find him on Twitter, X, at Isaac Willour. He's talking to us about Disney and the disaster they've made for investors. All right, Isaac, I just wanted to give you a chance to give us any other thought that is top of mind and needs to be out there if we didn't cover everything.
So as of Disney's board meeting yesterday, all of Disney's board remains, right? Their shareholders have voted to keep the current board. This means a couple of things. One, it means the pressure is on Bob Iger. So Bob Iger who's the CEO of Disney. He's slated to retire in, I want to say it's 2026. Between now and then, the pressure is on big time. Now he has to make share prices go up. And in fairness, and we didn't talk about this before the break, but we should talk about it. There are a couple of things that Disney has struggled with that are not political, right? They have to find a way to make streaming services profitable. politics aside, that's a difficult thing to do. But this isn't helping, right? Their focus on politics outside of products is not helping them. And what Disney shareholders have done is they have given the board and they've given Bob Iger another shot to make things right. And it remains to be seen if they'll actually learn from their mistakes. And if the past is any indication, they're probably not going to.
Okay, and what would is there a specific instruction you would give them if you were the new CEO? If Bob Iger brought you in as his successor, what would you do first?
Well, first, I'll try and make sure I'm not a DEI hire. Second thing I would say is Bob Iger needs to think long and hard about how political he is willing to let his brand, the most recognizable brand in all of entertainment, how political are you willing to let the Disney name become? And is it not probable that has become a major factor in the derailing of this product? And you need to turn that around by any means necessary. And yes, people are going to get mad at you, and you'll get some hit pieces in the New York Times about it. But you have to decide, is it worth going on this road that's destroyed billions, with a B, billions worth in shareholder value, or is it time to do something different? Also, you should never have executive producers talk about inserting gay agendas into films. That's just terrible. No.
Yeah, that is bad stuff. All right, Isaac, nice to talk with you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Take care.
All right, that's Isaac Willour. Isaac Willour. At Isaac Willour on X.